Black walnut, long prized for crafting rifle stocks, measured around 454 kilograms of force. White oak reached approximately 590 kilograms. American walnut, legendary for tool handles, registered roughly 816 kilograms. But the Osage orange soared to nearly 1,188 kilograms, claiming the title of the hardest native wood in the United States. Heavy, too. A dry block of Osage orange sinks like a stone, refusing to float. When burned as firewood, about 3.6 cubic meters stacked yield roughly 34 gigajoules of heat, making it one of the hottest burning woods across North America. Hotter even than anthracite coal, it resists rot completely when touching the soil. The United States Forest Service ranks Osage orange heartwood at the pinnacle for decay resistance. Within its dense core lie natural compounds, including a molecule called tetrahydroxybiphenyl, which blocks the growth of fungi and bacteria that normally degrade wood. Untreated Osage orange posts, planted back in the 1870s, remain standing today, intact and unbroken. Over the same century and a half, cast iron rusted, steel corroded, and pressure-treated pine had to be replaced repeatedly. As early as 1847, an Illinois professor noted that a row of young Osage orange trees, spaced roughly 30 centimeters apart and trimmed annually, could form a living fence completely impervious to intrusion. He suggested it as an economical alternative to imported timber, and the timing could not have been better. The American frontier was pushing west into nearly treeless lands. Settlement laws granted parcels to any colonist willing to work the soil. Yet the open prairie offered no material for fencing. Without barriers, livestock wandered freely, crops were unprotected, and so settlers turned to bodark. From 1865 to 1939, private landowners in Kansas alone planted nearly 64,000 kilometers of Osage orange hedgerows. Entire farms became enclosed with a single species, originally native to a narrow strip of just 320 kilometers between Texas and Oklahoma. Then came 1874. Joseph Glidden patented barbed wire. Within less than 10 years, factory-made wire costing a fraction of manual labor replaced living hedges. The Osage orange fence that had dominated the frontier for 3 decades suddenly became obsolete economically. Yet the trees themselves did not vanish. They endured, producing posts that could last a century without chemical treatment, shielding livestock from prairie winds, and by 1934, they became vital to American agriculture's survival. Spring of 1934 revealed the dying Great Plains. 4 years of relentless drought, coupled with decades of aggressive plowing, had destroyed native root systems that held the fertile topsoil in place. When the winds came, the earth rose in storms so thick they blotted out the sun at noon. One single tempest carried roughly 317 million metric tons of rich soil eastward across the plains. Dust even reached ships 480 kilometers offshore in the Atlantic Ocean. On the 14th of April, 1935, a storm later known as Black Sunday killed cattle and children from Oklahoma to Nebraska. 14 million hectares of farmland became utterly unusable. President Franklin Roosevelt responded by launching the Prairie States Forestry Project. By 1942, the government had planted 220 million trees along the plains to block wind and preserve soil. Osage orange was among the most widely planted species. Its spiny density, unmatched drought tolerance, and century-long lifespan made it ideal for holding land in place. By the late 1940s, the dust storms were over. Fertile topsoil returned. Trees had saved the farms. In 1971, President Richard Nixon appointed a new Secretary of Agriculture, Earl Butz. Earl Butz, an agricultural economist, stepped into office already sitting on the boards of Ralston Purina and several other agro-industrial giants. He believed the future of American farming lay entirely in corporate scale, massive mechanization, and exporting cheap corn and soy. To him, small, diversified farms edged by living hedges, farms that had endured the Dust Bowl, were simply obstacles to corporate profits. Butz carried a motto. To the nation's farmers, he said, "Get big or get out." He urged them to plant, in his phrasing, close to close. Yet those fences were Osage orange hedges, the very same barriers he now deemed expendable. Under his guidance, government policy actively encouraged the removal of the trees that had once shielded the country. Farmers were told that every meter of land occupied by trees meant lost crop revenue. Large tractors struggled to turn efficiently around hedged fields, and soon bulldozers spread across the Midwest. Heavy machinery uprooted precisely the trees planted during the Dust Bowl by the grandparents of those now clearing them. Millions of trees were ripped from the soil. In 1977, Kentucky poet and farmer Wendell Berry publicly debated Butz at Manchester College, Indiana. Berry told the audience that agreement with Butz was impossible. Butz argued in numbers, Berry in values. The year prior, Butz had resigned in disgrace after a racist comment to a reporter. 4 years after the debate, he was convicted of tax fraud. Still, his policies remained in force. Family farms, warned to get big or get out, were swallowed by mega corporations, and the hedges kept disappearing. Today, a steel fence post costs about 70 Mexican pesos and will rust in 30 years. A pressure-treated pine post bought at a hardware store runs roughly 140 pesos and often carries a 15-year guarantee. One Osage orange post can endure a century. The timber that once built the American frontier has not vanished. Trees Daniel Freeman planted in 1877 still stand on his Nebraska farm. Millions of Osage oranges survive in groves along roads, abandoned fences, and corners of farms too small to mechanize. Anyone with a chainsaw, a truck, and landowner permission can harvest it today. If you want a fence that will outlast you, your children, and your grandchildren, take a rural road in Missouri or Kansas in October. Look for softball-sized green fruits fallen beneath tangled thorny trees. Ask the farmer whose field borders the hedge. In most cases, they will let you cut what you need in exchange for helping clear the rest. Split the heartwood, turn it into posts, and drive them into the ground while still green, before they harden even more over the years. They need no creosote, no toxic preservatives. A century from now, they will still stand. Osage orange is absent from hardware stores because no store can sell a post that outlives its business. This hardest wood in North America was once traded for horses and blankets by indigenous warriors. It fenced settlement lands, survived the Dust Bowl, endured Earl Butts, and will easily outlast chemically treated pine pushed onto American farmers by a corrupt politician. It grows even now at the edge of a field you may have passed 100 times. The timber of kings remains, free for anyone who knows how to harvest it. We have not lost the Osage orange. We simply stopped planting it. If this story reshapes how you view the world around you, keep this knowledge alive and share it. Every like and every share helps preserve what others once tried to erase.